that, Kevin? Is that a V6?
Ocho, my brother. Ocho. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the 392 Hemi JL Rubicon. We've been waiting a long time to get our hands on one of these bad boys. Over the next few weeks, we'll be tearing this one apart, installing 40-inch tires, 1-ton axles, our WFO long arm kit, and Fox 2.5-inch shocks. Before we cut it up, let's see what 470 horsepower really feels like. Alright, well, on the inside doesn't look much different than a regular JL, but you can definitely feel the rumble. And right here is where you open up the pipes. So hit that button and we are now, hear that? That sounds good. And then traction control is off. So what we're gonna do is wait till we got a nice little window and see if we can, get her up to 100, just for testing purposes, right? Here's a nice window and off we go. Whoa, buddy! Yeah! Woo! That's not a 6-cylinder. That's bald eagles, and just like that, we're at 100. And passing cars. Now we'll slow down. So, the results are in. Everybody needs a 392. Oh my gosh. When you get on it, it is fun to drive. So let's put this thing up on the lift and look underneath, see what we got under there. All right, man, that was a freaking rad drive, but now it's time to get one of these things up on the rack and see what's really underneath here and what's different. I mean, nobody really knows. Everybody's heard about them, but nobody's got underneath and peeked at them, so we'll give you a little shot of what we got going. So the first thing that's different on these is we got these rims. So these are regular wheels and beadlock optional. So if you take a look, these bolts actually do bolt the ring on. And right now the ring's on the outside and there's a big gap here. So if you want to, once you get it, you can remove your tires, remove the ring, and then mount the tire on the outside, cinch the ring down, and then you got a beadlock. So it's pretty sweet that a production vehicle is actually coming with a beadlock, but I'm sure it's for insurance reasons or something. They don't have them mounted in the beadlock way when you get the Jeep. So we're not gonna run these little tiny tires anyway, but the wheels are really cool. So that comes with every 392. And then underneath here, I believe this is a 392 thing. The knuckles are now steel instead of aluminum. And then check this out. If you can see in there, so it's got a CV boot. And that's our biggest problem with these things. So the 392s, I think what happened is if they were two-wheel drive with a regular transfer case, pretty much every American would kill themselves. I mean, it's a lot of horsepower, a lot of smoke in the tires, so they just opted out to make it all-wheel drive. That's good for Subaru guys, but us Jeep guys, we want to be able to let it loose a little bit. So back here, even though this is a 392 Rubicon, Sean is just breaking a few things loose for me, but this is the new transfer case. So this is only a 2.7 low range, not 4-to-1. And take a look at this actuator on the back here. So this must engage or disengage the flux capacitor, the viscous clutch. So basically, all-wheel drive is not locked in four-wheel drive. It has a clutch inside that transfer case that gives most of the power to the rear end, and then it transfers power to the front end when needed. I don't really like that. We're going to leave it in for the build and see what happens. So right now Sean is unbolting the front drive shaft because just my own curiosity, and it's not my Jeep and I want to lay giant smoky burnouts on tires we're going to get rid of, because when you drop your Jeep off at WFO and you sign that waiver, that means I'm going to do some burnouts. Sorry, Jason. So what I'm hoping is with the drive shaft out now, we can lock it into four-wheel drive, Look at that front yoke. The new yoke is way bigger. So I'm hoping we can lock it into 4 high and do some smoky burnouts. We'll see what the traction control does. So the other thing we did, the Wrangler JLs have a vacuum disconnect for the front drive shaft here. So let's look what's under that plate. I want to see if it's a solid axle or not. Still has the 2-piece front shaft, but check out that plate Sean's got in his hands. They just cast the fork over, so basically it just locks this collar into 4-wheel drive at all the time. So I guess what else we could have done is just taken the plate off, slid the collar over where it was disengaged, put it back on, and left the driveline in. Probably still could have tried this burnout scenario. So for now, we'll bolt this back in. We'll leave the drive shaft out, and I think we go out and do some burnouts. But before it comes down, we'll show you a couple more differences on the 392. So as you can see, the exhaust, very big, comes across, all stainless. And right here, it's an actual true dual. And then check this out. Actually has a stainless cross pipe into basically like a pre-muffler right here. True duals all the way up into the back muffler system. And then if you look, exits, I like to call this twice pipes, but it's like dual twice pipes, exits in the rear. And this actually has electronic cutouts installed. So I don't know if you can see this. Come take a look right here. So right up underneath here, here's a vacuum actuator that basically switches it over from single lame exhaust to a straight pipe right here. And let me tell you, when you hit the button, that thing gets it on. It sounds awesome. Other than that, some of the things they've changed on the 392, take a look right here. They went with gold emblems on the Fox shocks, which is pretty cool. And then the hood also, the Rubicon lettering is gold around it. And as you'll see when we get it back down on the ground, it also has a hood scoop. Now, one other thing, people aren't realizing that the 392s do come a little bit higher. They say it's 1 more inch than a regular Rubicon, and I'll show you why. So look right here. You see this oil filter. So the 392 has the oil filter right on the front of the motor. Here's the upper control arm mount. If they didn't have that extra 1 inch, this would come up and hit this oil filter housing, because you got to remember, we're at full droop right now. So they basically had to do 1 more inch of lift and 1 more inch of bump stop just to clear this oil filter, which doesn't matter for us because we're putting a 60 in it and lifting it and getting it on. So before we take it out and try and smoke them off, like I said, 392, completely different hood, actually does have cold air induction, and you know, a couple little neat things. Made the hooks gold instead of red. So let's look under the hood here and see how they get this thing in. From the underneath, you could actually tell the block is orange, which is cool, just like the SRT8. They left some gold accents here. And check this out. This is the air box. So the cold air intake comes into this flange here, straight into the intake and into the motor. So 100% a true cold air intake system. Now, you got to wonder what happens when you're doing 120, like I was just a minute ago. Is that forcing too much air in there? Is that going to lean it out? Well, here's how they deal with that. So check this out. We have flappers back here, so the extra air pressure comes through the hood and exits in the back here, and also goes down and dumps the hot air out underneath the rig, basically cooling off the engine compartment too. So they really did a good job of fitting it in here. There's still quite a bit of room around the engine. You can tell they had to move the coolant bottle up over here where the brakes normally were, and then fit it up in here. And the brake master cylinder and booster is slightly different, but all in all, everything underneath the hood looks great. And keep in mind that with the Hemi, oh shoot, I was wondering what this was going to be, but they still have the electronic steering in there. I was thinking that they were going to do a belt and pulley, because that's what most of the Hemi conversions do, but somehow they fit it in there. The electronic steering is still in there, not run off the engine from the factory. So we may need to change that, putting the 1-tons in. We'll just have to see. Well, let's go back to this thing out and see what happens. All right, well, here we go. Let's see if the proof of concept works. You ready? There it is, that goddamn rev limiter. Never mind. Don't want to swear, but okay, we're good. Sorry about the Jeep, Jason.